Hi, I'm Joe Yudin. I'm the owner of Touring Israel Luxury Private Tours. And since you can't travel to Israel right now because of the pandemic, I thought I'd bring Israel to you. So we're going to bring you different people from Israel, different personalities, um, tour guides, journalists, chefs, uh, different peoples from all walks of life in Israel. And today we're starting out with touring Israel's lead tour guide and travel planner, Yogev Ozeri. Hey, Yogev, how you?
Hello. Good morning. I'm good. I'm good. And you?
Good. Thanks for being here. So we've known each other for a while now. You've worked for touring Israel for over a year and
Almost 2 years.
almost 2 years, and you've been a tour guide for many years. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So nice to meet you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity, to do something tourism related in those very interesting times. It's always a pleasure to talk about tourism, about Israel, which is a very special place. A little bit about myself. I'm 36 years old, and Um, I was born outside of Jerusalem for a Jewish family with very interesting roots that goes all the way to Yemen. Uh, my grandparents was living in Yemen up to 1948, and then they moved after the establishment of the state of Israel. Um, and they settled their life outside of Jerusalem, knowing that Jerusalem is Zion, and that's where their heart was, and that's where Jews from Yemen was praying and you know thinking about when they will be able to come back. And they moved to Israel. They started their life, and I grew up in Jerusalem area. Um,
How did your grandparents get to Israel? Were they part of the Mossad operation to bring the Jews of Yemen into Israel? Did they walk? Did they fly? I know there were different ways that the Jews of Yemen in 47 and 48 and thereafter came to Israel. How did they get
yeah,
here?
so my family in particular, alongside I think few, maybe 100,000 Jews came from Yemen in 1948 and 1949 by planes.
Mhm.
They were flown into Israel by the Jewish agency representative. Um, but basically, there were another two big waves of migration coming from Yemen to Israel, starting, in the second half of the 19th century. So my family came as, after the establishment of the state of Israel. They took planes, they flew from this very primitive country. And you can see in some of the photos that soon you're going to be on screen, you see here a village called Teiz, which is the village where my family came from. And actually, they left those mud houses, as you can see them. They shut down their businesses and they just took a plane and migrated all the way to Israel by the assistance of the Jewish agency. And here in this photo, basically, this is, by the way, this is not my family. This is a photo that was shot by a Dutch tourist in the 80s in the same town. He was actually on one of my tours 5 years ago, and he surprised me after the trip. He sent me an email and he sent me those photos, and he told me, "Listen, I was there. I saw the remnants of this jewelry living, and maybe in the next photo you will be able to see a facade of a beautiful synagogue with a Magen David, which is really, mind blowing."
David right there. Yes.
Yeah, right on the top under the Mukarnas, you can see the Star of David. This is, by the way, a ruined building. So this jewelry left that area, moved from Yemen, and decided, to leave everything behind and to come to Israel, to Zion. And
Mhm.
then, my father was, he was born a year after the family moved to Israel. And they started as farmers, like a lot of the Jews coming back then. uh, and they were cultivating the land and working and creating crops and having chicken and cow pens and basically starting life here in Israel. I was having a um, you know normal life, starting in Jerusalem, learning in a boarding school in Jerusalem, one of the Ivy League schools uh, called Boyer. And then I decided that Jerusalem is so special and so unique, and I will try and to be recruited in the army to serve in Jerusalem. That was one of my goals. I literally fell in love in this city. I mean, I were able on a very early stage of my um, grown up, I was able to understand that Jerusalem is something unique and that's something that really affects me. And eventually, I was recruited to the police forces in Jerusalem, and I was stationed in the old city. Yeah,
Was it
yeah.
the border police or the regular
No,
police?
it was the regular civil police. It
And,
was not the
and
border police.
right. And I know in Yemen they speak Arabic, and your grandparents probably spoke Arabic, and maybe even your parents. But was one of the reasons you were recruited into the police, the Jerusalem Municipal Police, is because did you speak Arabic or?
So I am speaking a little bit Arabic, more of the street language. Okay, I'm fluent in the street language, and that was one of my advantages
Mhm.
being drafted in this position. But it's really interesting because basically the Israeli police is a police that represent Israel, and
Mhm.
and and, and in Israel, the official languages are Hebrew, Arabic, English, and also Russian and English, of course. So, the daily life issues of the police and everything is going on in Hebrew. But, and that's something really special, and that's something that really affects me, Israel is all about the people. And the Druze community who live up in the Galilee and in the Golan Heights, okay, a lot of those people, those men are working in the police services throughout
Mhm.
the country.
Mhm.
And when I was drafted into the police station of the old city, the David district, in other words, Jaffa Gate was my police headquarters.
Mhm.
A lot of the comrades were Druze Christians, Arab Muslim from the Galilee, from the Negev, the south part of Israel. And all of those people spoke among themselves Arabic, and that way I were able, to sharpen a little bit my Arabic. I
Mhm.
mean, when I'm traveling in Old Jerusalem and you go into the Golden Dome, I mean, going among,
The Dome of the Rock.
the the Dome of the Rock, aka the Golden Dome, and you can see it in the photo over here. You can see down the wall, and you can see above the wall at the second level, the gold dome, the Dome of the Rock, you're right. I mean, when people are going through this suspended bridge over here and they're crossing into the plaza, they're actually are able to walk next to those buildings. And when they see the Israeli police forces over there, they
Mhm.
basically see those people that I'm talking about.
Mhm.
The Rus, the Muslim, the Christian who lives all across the country, and they're coming to break bread and to live in Jerusalem for a couple of days over the week and work in the police station. And their added value that takes them to this position is that I would say that a fair amount, maybe 90% of the people of the old city itself are native Arab speakers.
Mhm.
And when you want to work with them and give them services, you need to have people who understand their mindset and were able to communicate with them the best way possible in their language. So yeah, those people are working in those areas are Arabs, Israelis who comes and live in Jerusalem for their duty. And basically I was fortunate, to be among those people and to see the different parts of society. And
Right. I'm sure that gives you a very unique perspective, to really know the people in the old city in Jerusalem. There's so many different cultures and religions there amongst the Armenians, the Greek Orthodox, the Syrian Orthodox, the Jews of all the different sects, the Hasidic sects, the Haredi sects, the Muslims. So the Christians, the Greek Orthodox, the Catholics, the Greek Catholics, people didn't know it really existed, which is a big sect of Christianity here in Israel, has a big presence in Jerusalem. So, me as a tour guide, when I go into Jerusalem and guide, my focus is on the history of Jerusalem, because I didn't have that same opportunity to actually live in the old city as a police man and police person and actually get to know the people. You probably know of some very unique places and unique characters uh, to visit while you're guiding there. Has this helped you in your guiding at all?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you can tackle Jerusalem when guiding from many levels. Like you said, the obvious, the classic, the must, the historical, the religious aspect, to connect people, to show them the important places, to help them to find their identity within, the sites themselves, whether it's the Jewish quarter, the Christian quarter, the Muslim quarter, and on a higher level, and that relates to what you've been talking about. I mean, when I walk in the Muslim quarter, I feel at home. I
Mhm.
mean, I literally feel at home. I know all the little places. I know, the little streets. I can talk with my Arabic with the people, to understand their mindset, to see how they are, to understand where I should go, where I should avoid. I mean, you can see in one of the photos, in a second he's going to upload, you will see Mr. Abu Hassan al-Baghdadi chopping his Arabic version of a salad. I mean, this guy has tiny little, a hole in the wall restaurant, a hummus joint, where he makes three things. He makes hummus, he makes kebabs, skewer kebabs, and they're amazing.
Oh,
And you can see the grill behind him, and you can see how he chopped with his machete, his version of Arabic salad or Israeli salad. And this guy has, he's located outside gate number 8, leaving from the Temple Mount into the Muslim quarter. I mean, most of tourists would not go there. I mean,
mm,
they won't go there because they don't know how to, the directions, where it is, how it is. And I walk to his place and I let people, sample Jerusalem, through their taste palettes,
right,
and to see it, to feel it, to talk with him. He
right.
doesn't speak any English, by the way, so I need to be the mediator and, to communicate, what he says. But his family story is unbelievable. His name is Abu Hassan al-Baghdadi, because basically he arrived, I mean, 200, 300 years, who counts, from Baghdad, from Iraq. His family migrated into Jerusalem, probably under the Ottomans, and they set their place in the northern part of the old city of Jerusalem. And he still keeps this tradition. I mean, everybody knows him as the guy who came from Baghdad. Alongside with him, in the same neighborhood, there are a few other families that also came from that area. And this is what Jerusalem is all about. And this is why it makes Jerusalem, I mean, the most fascinating and probably, the number one place to visit in Israel. When you see this, this sort of it's a beautiful mosaic of different traditions, identities, origins, cultures. Not only, when you break it into different religions, Jews, Muslim, Christian, Baha'i, uh, uh, um, others, but also within the community, just like you said, Joe, when we're talking about the Jewish community who lives in Jerusalem, whether it's the old city or greater Jerusalem, you have so many different sects and different communities and different subdivisions, but also in the Muslim community. And that really creates for us opportunity to tell stories of
Wonderful.
people.
You're really making me want to go to the old city right now. But
The
let's move on.
hummus, his hummus is great, by the way.
Oh, I can't wait for you to take me there. I've never been there. I didn't know he existed. So after the police, that's where you served the country. You did your years in your national service in the police force. What did you do after that? Did you go to university?
Yeah, I did. I went to have to pursue my first of all tour guide certificate for 2 years. And by the way, tour guides in Israel,
Yeah, explain a little bit of that. I know about it, but why don't you tell us
yeah.
a bit about that process?
So to become a tour guide in Israel, that's a pretty long and thorough process. It takes you, I would say, an average 2.5 years. You are studying a year and a half, maybe a little bit over a year and a half, studying in class while living your life. It's an executive course. I mean, it's a professional course that is being monitored and examined by the Ministry of Tourism. that is outsourced to a private companies, and you study, and then you have the test,
Well,
basically two tests.
what kind of subjects do you study during the course?
So you study, pretty. I mean, you study history, archaeology, religion, science, flora, fauna, all the zoological, botanical, life of Israel. It's modern history of Israel and ancient history of Israel. Um, Israel society. Uh, from all different aspects of life. But it's only the beginning. Basically, the tour guide studies gives you only, triggers you to start and open yourself to the different things that later on will be your sort of guiding identity. And then you
Right.
need to go
That's
deep
what
and
I
deep.
found. I found that the tour guide course, which is vigorous, I mean, you have to learn Islam and Christianity and Judaism and even the subsects within those and the history and the fauna and the flora, everything you said. But that only gives you the basics. I found that the really good tour guides are the ones who dive in to the different subjects after the course and even during the course and really go out to different places and read as much as they can and really learn on their own. I mean, not the tour the course in itself is very difficult, but really I found that the best tour guides are twofold. Number one, they've gone that extra mile to really study those subjects, or at least the subjects that interest them. And most tour guides are very diverse in what they're good at, which subjects they're good at, as well as being well-rounded. And the second thing I found about tour guides is their personalities. If you don't have a good personality with, have people skills, you're, no matter how much you're not going to be a good tour guide. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Actually, that's what engaged me going into this field and to become a tour guide. I mean, I was working as a chef in many restaurants in
Oh,
Jerusalem.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
I
that.
mean, I mean, I have two great things that I like to do. One is food, culinary, gastronomy that really talks and moves me to do things, and also the land of Israel, the story of Israel, and people, just like you said. I mean, a good guide must know his knowledge, must know his history, but he must understand what are the people needs, what do they feel, how to relate, how to deliver. I mean, I was working as a chef in restaurants, and now, being behind in the kitchen when everybody's dining, having a fantastic chef dinner, and making all the food and prepare for them, and you feel a little bit that you're, behind the scene. And I wanted to be in front. I wanted to be out and about, to see, to feel, to walk. And I remember my mother telling me, listen, Yogi, that's my nickname. You know what? Try maybe to think about something else. Maybe go. You need to do two things. You need to work with people, and you need to do it outdoors. You
Mhm.
need to walk with them. You need to feel them. You need to feel, the sun in your face. And that's exactly, the essence of tourism. You walk, you're out, you see, you feel,
Mhm.
and everything, the whole experience gives you, gives you the feeling that you're doing something different from your daily life. And then I become, a tour guide, and went to study a couple of weeks after this conversation. And after the 2 years long course, I had the two tests, and in January 2011, I was having my first group, guiding the first group. And at the beginning, I just wanted to get experience, experience, experience. You're leaving the course, and you're feeling that you want to go and, take it all over. And,
Right.
it takes you 3, 4, I would say even fair amount of 5 years until you're getting to a point that you're feeling okay.
Right.
I can
Absolutely.
go.
I worked on the tour buses for the cruises and for Birthright, these teen tours, for about 3 years before I felt comfortable, buying a tourist vehicle and taking families around myself, where the confidence, where I knew the roads, I knew where the bathrooms were, I knew the best places to eat, I knew what to say, and even more importantly, what not to say. Uh,
Yeah.
I didn't have to give them all the information that I know, but people aren't going to remember everything you tell them, but to tell the story in a way that they're going to remember it, and in a way that's going to be meaningful to them, and that they could pass on to their children and their friends and their family when they get home, and give them that feeling. of, yeah, I just had, one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and definitely the guide right out of tour guide school, and even some guides with experience, don't have that special thing. So yeah, absolutely. I know you have it, and I know most of our, or all of the guides that we pick to work with us, have it. So let's move on. What's your favorite place it's a twofold question. Um,
Yeah.
what's your favorite place to go with your family to visit? And what's your favorite thing to do, or thing to see or visit with tourists? And does that change depending on what kind of obviously you're not going to take a 70-year-old couple on a hike down Nachal Amud for
Hmm.
8-hour hike to a spring to go swimming. Although, for a
If
younger
they're
family,
fit.
yeah, sometimes. But so why don't you give me a couple of your favorite places to guide people of different ranges of people, and what's your favorite place in Israel for you to personally visit with your family?
Okay, fantastic. I mean, it's a tough question.
Yeah,
I mean, there are so many beautiful places, and Israel is fascinating, even though it's relatively small. But there are so many different terrains and landscapes, and I mean, sometimes it depends on the mood. I
right,
mean, let's start with. I will start with what do I like to do? A favorite place for people, in their 60s, 70s, 80s who comes to travel in Israel. So I would say, first of all, Jerusalem, and the old city of Jerusalem. I would make sure that they will have a minimum of a half a day immersing themselves in the historical archaeological sites of Jerusalem alongside meeting with locals in the old city. And I must say that my personal perspective will be to try to create for them a balance between the different people who lives in the old city community, whether it's a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, living in this, pretty much sharing the same house. I mean, the old city, because going into the old city of Jerusalem, yeah, it's not only about the Jews who lives in the Jewish quarter and the Western Wall. It's also about the Muslim. It's also about the smells, the scents, the you know the Christian quarter. Even though the Christian community is smaller from the Muslim community, is the main tourist attraction in Old Jerusalem. Christian
right,
comes from all across the world to see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So for 60, 70, 80-year olders, having a half day in the old city together with maybe 2 hours or an hour wrap up in the Israel Museum, that's a perfect day. And that's a must. A must. I mean, if you really want to spice it a little bit, so maybe have a special dinner or a morning talk with a journalist or with somebody who can recap what you saw or what you are about to see. That will give it an added value, and that would be a perfect day. So Jerusalem, the old city, it's number one for people who wants to come. Those people heard so much about Jerusalem. Now
right,
they're actually able to come and touch it, and
right.
it's also very yeah.
What's your I've always found when I'm guiding people, it doesn't matter who they are, how old they are, what their background is, or what country they're from. When I'm taking people through Jerusalem, what I know what my answer will be. I'm more interested in what you have to say. What's their biggest surprise after walking through the old city for the day? Is there one thing that people always say, "Wow"?
How do people live here? I mean, it really attacks their senses to see that the market is also the back part of a house or
Right.
above. I mean, they can never imagine themselves living, under a shop where the shopkeeper is selling his good by shouting in the street, "Come and buy from me. I have a better same thing." I
In a
mean,
700-year-old building.
yeah. I
Right.
mean, I mean, I think that you have the wow moment that they're all experiencing
Mhm.
when I always make sure. I mean, I think that a good guide will must add a beautiful lookout to give them a bird eye view of the old city. I mean,
Right.
that's really a must. And the wow feeling of here it is. I mean, this is the size of it. And here is the place where the Bible tells us that this happened and that happened. I mean, even if they're not, a big Bible lovers, okay,
Right.
still everyone has a small portion of a biblical, knowledge, and it comes to life. And
Right.
I think that for them, for people who comes and see it, especially for the first time, it's really gives a wow effect, and that's something that they will go and take with them after back
Right.
home. I mean,
I was also thinking that you're absolutely right with what you say. I was also thinking that people, after spending a day in Jerusalem, in the old city and in the new city as well, is they always come back and say, I felt so safe in the news and what I read. It scared me a little bit, but now that I'm here, I feel so safe, safer than I do walking the streets of Manhattan or wherever they live. I mean, do you come across that as well?
absolutely, and it's and it's even 10 times more more clear when they're finishing a tour of 10 days in Israel,
Right.
and right a moment before you are saying goodbye, they will say, "You get, that was a life, well, once of a lifetime experience. I could never imagine it, such a safe, relaxed, and cool experience that Israel can be for me, for my family, from the teenagers that part of my family. But yes, safe is something that people feel, and that safety is something that you know when you walk in Tel Aviv and you go shopping, you go and having a smoothie or having a cocktail that evening, there just like if you're in downtown Manhattan, doing the same things that you would do when you're going and visiting, cool places where you're living. So yeah, absolutely.
Great.
And
So
your
go ahead.
favorite place for me and my family to
That's where I
to
was
to
going to
be.
go.
So, I mean, we like to do a lot of things. We like to, me and my wife in Bali that you probably saw walk in a little bit because
Right.
we're doing it from home. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so we like to take a vacation in Tel Aviv. We live, by the way, in the Galilee. We live right next to the Sea of Galilee, which is basically we live in a small community, a kibbutz. It's a farmers community, and we grow avocado, mangoes, and right off the Sea of Galilee. And sometimes when we really want to go and to enjoy the city life, we'll take a hotel in the city in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem. We take a weekend and we go and have a lot of good food
Right.
because there is an amazing food scene, amazing culinary scene in Tel Aviv. We know some of the people in the industry, so we go and we eat in one or two restaurants. Take a bicycle and go on a great, just rent a bike and just tour the city and see some of the landmarks. That's when we're doing it together. But when we want to do things with our children's, we have two kids, 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we're expecting in the 2 months to have another kid. We will do camping in the Golan Heights in the Jordan River. I mean, we live literally in one of the most beautiful areas, the lush green places, areas in Israel, and we like going and doing camping in the Golan Heights, and maybe, like you can see in this video, maybe have a nice lunch. So we're gonna play the video.
Is that your
Here is
family?
my family, by the way. Yeah, and you can see behind us. That's a photo that we took when we were in. We were just driving in our Jeep in the Jordan River, and we just stopped for a photo. The bright area behind them, that's the Sea of Galilee, by the way, where we live. And after doing camping for 2, 3, 4 days, depends how much time we have, right next to the river, we can go and visit some of the Druze friends we have, and we can see in the video, some of the Druze delicacies and sit with them for a lunch and talk with them. And they have awesome food. I mean, really, really special food. You can see here how she flips. This is in Majd al-Shams in the northern part of the Golan Heights. She just flipped the pot, and you can see the makluba, which is a rice with chicken or with meat, and the tabbouleh with the
Is it
bulgur with the spices.
A Druze meal or an Arabic meal?
this is a Druze mill. This is a Druze family
Mhm.
in from the village of Majd al-Shams, which is right on the border with the Syrian entity or the Syrian country.
Go
And
on.
actually, that's something that we weave in it. Yeah, we weave it into our itineraries many, many times. I
Mhm.
mean, to give our guests the opportunity to get a perspective about Israel, not only from the tour guide perspective, but also from, a tangible talk with a local. Sit with him, break bread with him, hear what he has to say,
Mhm.
understand his perspective. And I don't know if I have time, but basically the Druze community is really interesting because it's one of the minorities who live in Israel. And the strength of the Israel experience is not only the historical perspective, archaeological, religious perspective, in my personal opinion, is the human story, the diverse human story that we're able to tell here. I mean, it's a very small country, but you can, on a course of a half a day, sit with a Druze sheikh, a Christian priest, a hipster Tel Avivian, and talk with a local Arab who sell goods.
Oh, great. Well, I thank you. That's all the time we have for today. It's been very interesting. I actually learned some things about Israel and about you as well, and I'm definitely going to force you to take me to a couple of those places to eat that I haven't been to before. I think I'd like to
Sure.
do a tour with you of the old city. I know I've been there a million times, but here you already showed me a place that I've never been before. So this is terrific. Um,
Fantastic.
yeah. So,
I mean, we can do a great hummus tour in the old city, and I thank you also for this opportunity. And I mean, come and visit Israel. I mean, there is so much to see. I mean, we're here.
right, hopefully by mid-May, this whole coronavirus thing will be over, and we'll start to see tourists come back soon. So, thank you, Yogev Ozeri. Thank you to my tech genius, Jonathan Rose, who is behind the scenes. You don't see him. Who's actually also a new Condé Nast Traveler Israel specialist. Mazal Tov, Jonathan Rose. Congratulations. There he is. How you
Mazal
doing?
tov, Jono.
And we'll be doing this again real soon. We'll be interviewing different people from all walks of life of Israel. So we'll get this up on our YouTube channel and in a couple other places. And hopefully you'll be joining us a couple times a week. Take care. This is Joe Yudin from Touring Israel Luxury Private Tours. Thank you. Bye-bye.